Well, John Prosser is on his way to the Capitol building to do a little lobbying this morning. He is the author of No Fault Insurance, the Educated Consumer's Guide to Such, and he's got a video you can watch if you like at neurotraumaassociation.com that talks about exactly what we just talked about, how precious your noggin is. You hear Bob Seger in the background there. He was at the Palace yesterday doing one of his 3 shows at the Palace of Auburn Hills. They say it was very satisfying. There was a twinge of nostalgia and a very good show. And, of course, Bob Seger is coming to the Van Andel Arena in Grand Rapids on May 28th, and we'd like to send you to that show and 3 of your friends. How about this? 4 free tickets to the Bob Seger show at Van Andel Arena. We'll send you there in a limousine, and we'll give you a rooftop party before the show hosted by American Metal Roofs. And just go to rockingtheroof.com, rockingtheroof.com right now and register, and you could have a little bash with Bob Seger in Grand Rapids. It's rockingtheroof.com. Rocking the news this morning is the IMF Fund chief, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, said to be under suicide watch as he spends time locked up at New York's prison Rikers Island. He was viewed as a top contender in the upcoming French presidential election. He apparently boarded a plane in New York, and they stopped the plane and took him right off the plane because he's accused of trying to rape a housekeeper at an upscale Manhattan hotel over the weekend. His court appearance is this Friday. Nobody knows if he's called Elizabeth Kelly yet, but he might want to. Criminal defense attorney from Cleveland, Ohio. You've seen her on CNN, on Fox, MSNBC, True TV, and maybe you heard her own weekly radio show, Celebrity Court. She's with us this morning. Good morning, Counselor.
Good morning, Michael Patrick.
Well, I guess the question is this going to end up a sort of a he said, she said? Because from what I understand in watching the news accounts, this Dominique Strauss-Kahn, his defense is going to be that it was consensual, not an attempted rape. What do you think?
Well, he has a couple possible defenses floating. One, of course, is consent, and the other is an alibi. His attorney, Ben Brossman, says that the timeline just doesn't add up, that instead of fleeing the hotel as this maid is contending, he actually leisurely left the hotel, had lunch with his daughter, and then got on the plane. So there was nothing amiss. But what strikes me about this whole case is, aside from the accusations, which are horrible, this man is being held without bond. And the reason why this is so unusual is across this country, in every case but a capital murder case, there is a presumption of bond. And even for people who have means like this gentleman does and who are not U.S. citizens, there are protections in place, like turning over your passport, like living at a designated location until the case is over, like being on an ankle bracelet. So I think this particular judge who presided over the bond hearing was being overly cautious.
Well, I guess it would be a prison in itself for a guy like that, who obviously is a high-flying sort of fellow, high profile, to have to live outside of the prison in New York somewhere, unable to return to his home country. And presumably the fear was that if he left the country, he wouldn't come back, because in France they seem to be outraged by the way he's been treated.
Well, and beyond that, we don't have an extradition treaty with France. But yes, you're right. The outrage in France is huge, in large part, and this is interesting, they passed a law back in 2000 saying that photographers cannot take a picture of what we call the perp walk and then have those photographs published. That's a criminal offense in itself in France.
Here, of course, he's shown up in the courtroom, he's shown up in handcuffs, he's humiliated, whether he's guilty or innocent. And if you believe some of the conspiracy theorists, they say he may have been set up by one of his political rivals. But the damage now is already done, isn't it? He's living in an 11 by 6 foot room or something like that, having had his picture shown all over the world as a would-be rapist.
Yeah, and it's not your ordinary 11 by 6 foot room. It's a room at Rikers Island. This is not his $3,000 a night room at the Sofitel.
Yeah.
in Manhattan. But he does have another bond hearing coming up, and maybe a new judge will be more reasonable as to the terms of pretrial release. Because, it could take a long time before this case is resolved, whether it goes to trial, whether it's a plea, and it just doesn't make sense to keep this man in these types of conditions for so long.
It's a tricky prospect, as you say. And while nobody wants to, nobody forgives a rapist, at the same time, we really don't know what happened.
Alleged rapist.
We really don't know what happened in that hotel room. We don't even know if he was in that hotel room at the moment. But his career seems to have come to a screeching halt now.
Well, if you were running for office in the United States, maybe, but in France, that's another story.
That's a good point.
And he also had the misfortune of being arrested during the same news cycle that Arnold made his revelations.
Yeah.
So the media is real pumped for all of these salacious stories about powerful men.
That's a good pun. How can we listen to your program this weekend online here in Michigan?
Oh, you can go on to WHKradio.com and listen to the show live. Would love for your listeners to call in, to email, to follow on Twitter, or if they miss the show live, they can go on to my website, ElizabethKellyLaw.com. We usually throw up the show a couple days after the airing.
Terrific. Thank you very much. I know we'll see you on national television. Elizabeth Kelly from Cleveland, Ohio. You've seen her on CNN, MSNBC, and now with us here on Michigan's Morning Show with Michael Patrick Shields.